Okay, for this talk, if you would like to follow along, there is a link on the site where you could have downloaded it. If no, you'll just watch. Obviously, it was much better to sit there and ask questions, but I'm here, and this talk will be dedicated to the AWS CDK. Sort of introduction, but this introduction will also include some live stuff. First, probably I'll start with what is CDK, and after that, I will describe how I got myself here. CDK is the framework from AWS which allows you to implement the infrastructure in the language of your choice. It's fairly recent. It has been first released in 2018, but compared to other tools like Terraform was released in 2014, like everything is new. So it's still getting its momentum. And I think the main selling point of this stuff is that it's actually available in multiple programming languages. That was the selling point for me. So I'm Bohdan. I did most of my career as a software developer. And like, why would you care for this? Why I cared for this? At some point in time, I had to work with the infrastructure, and I have to admit that engineers, software engineers, they're just afraid of the infrastructure. They're afraid of QAs, they're afraid of anybody. It's not my job. Let QA do it. It's not my job. Let's DevOps do it. But there was no escape for me, and I actually wanted to take a look at the AWS and learn TypeScript, improve my knowledge of TypeScript. And I found the CDK, and I have never regret. So yes, it's a new tool, so sometimes it feels like a weirdo in the room because there is Terraform that everybody is using. There are other tools that big companies are using. Most of the jobs are in those tools, and despite that feeling, in the end, it's all YAML. Like, even despite you're using the programming language, it still gets compiled into the CloudFormation template. And yeah, without YAML, it would not work. But because of the use of the programming language, the level of the abstraction and the usability of this tool for me personally is just amazing. So while it isn't that popular, I would say, or maybe not even well known these days, I will try to change your mind about that and maybe just show a different perspective. So this is what I will be building today. It's actually VPC with few networks, with NAT instances, and the Elastic Beanstalk stack deployed. It is separated into two pieces. First stack is for the VPC, second stack is for Elastic Beanstalk. And while I will be describing moving parts and how it works together, what are strengths and what are the weak points, I will start the deployment. So that in the end of this talk, I have a new environment with the application deployed, available online. And maybe this will be a selling point once again in your companies for engineers, because on the internet, a lot of engineers are asking like, how I get my application into production, how I get my pet project into the production. And this may be a way. So this is the repository. There's the make file, and there are a few main commands that are required. I will go over them, but just to start the stuff. So first I do, can you see it? Should I make it bigger? Make check. Sorry, wrong folder. That happens. So this checks whether my environment is ready or set up properly, because I need Node, because it's in TypeScript, I need AWS CLI, not CLI, but profile, which should be named mine, and I'm ready. So next I do make install, which will install dependencies that are required for it to function, Node.js libraries. And the last step is make bootstrap. This actually, I don't have to do it because I did it before, but in order for this whole stuff to function, AWS needs roles, permissions that should be created in the region. So this is what happens now. So it says that I'm ready. Okay, so now I'll start with the first stack. I actually switch into the cloud folder, then The command is CDK diff, and I have sandbox stack. This will show you what is about to happen. So it does the check, compares resources that are available in the cloud, compares what you expect to have there, and shows you the difference. If you're happy with the difference, you're good to go. So here, a lot of resources because VPC, networks, all that stuff packaged, and I know that it should be fine. So next, I actually do the deployment. It will ask me for the confirmation. Okay. Permission changes, whether I'm happy with it. Yes. And let it do its job. So once again, the commands that I have run: prepare your environment, install the dependencies, and prepare AWS for the work. What will happen next? I will deploy the sandbox and the application, and I will destroy the resources. Destroying resources is important because if you don't destroy them, AWS will charge you for them. It will charge you for anything it can. But definitely, if you will be doing something with the CDK, don't forget to clean up in the end. These 3 scripts, they are built in. This deploy version app is the custom script. So while working with Node, I had a time and desire, and I did the custom script that now allows me to deploy the application, not just stack, but stack with the versions that should be living there. So it's like application with built-in infrastructure. But where it lives, how it works, and how it's all get tied together. The first important file is within bin folder. By default, it's named cloud. And here where you define which resources should be created and how they should be created. I have 2 stacks, non-production stack, which I called sandbox, and Rails stack, which I call application. And also there are some parameters that I'm passing into those stacks. Why this is important? Because with the programming language, you can reflect on the stuff that gets passed in, and using conventions, functions, you have resources that will be named and will be convenient to work with. So next, let's take a look at the first stack that is responsible for VPC. It's pretty basic. So the ratio of the information per single line is compared to YAML is much higher. Like you look at the code, you see exactly what's going to happen, how it's going to work. With the YAML, this big, and good luck finding what's going to happen. So let me double check whether the cloud VPC has been created. Okay, not yet. A bit more here. Let's move on. I will come back and deploy the next stack later. So this is the second stack, Rails stack. It's bigger, maybe harder to navigate. But once again, the important part here, ratio of the information that you get from here to the stuff that is going to happen. Take the names, get Elastic Beanstalk bucket, create VPC, create role, create application, create instance profile, create environment. Like everything in one place, everything is easy to read, easy to work, easy to change, easy to customize. One of the big, and for me, from my experience with this tool, one of the great things about the CDK and programming languages is that you can customize it, you can tune it for yourself, and you can do whatever fits your team the best. Sorry, I will switch back to the deployment one more time. Done. So VPC has been created. I can move on. Next one is Abstract. This one is resource-wise smaller, but still the same scheme. You check the difference. It shows you what's going to change, what you're going to deploy. And if it works for you, you say, yes, please do. A lot of resources that I have described, a lot of resources that I have not described. And this is one of the things that AWS does well. Sorry, I will start the deployment so that it ends before Yeah, this is not the CDK command. This is the npm. So it packages the repository with the application of the code, creates the zip file, and makes that zip file a version that will get deployed into the Elastic Beanstalk environment. Creates the resources, compares them. It will ask for the confirmation. I will confirm, and we will come back into the demo. Security groups, roles, everything that I need, everything that I like in one place. And ready to be packaged. Where is my mouse? Okay. There should be no interruption till the end, and then I will come back to the application. Once again, the AWS approach is that it tries to do a lot of work for you. Like, you don't need to create the role. We will create. It will have the permissions. It will have everything. Like, we have you covered. So these were stacks, like higher level abstraction. Now let's move in a bit into the lower level abstractions and difference between them. They're called constructs, and AWS has the first is directly CloudFormation templates. They are just one-to-one mapping. And this is the lowest level of abstraction. And why it's lowest level of the abstraction? Because there is no like magic behind it. If you would like the ARN of the resource, you have to specify direct attribute. If you have to specify more attributes to create the resource. Level 2 constructs, they are, and all level 1 constructs, they have the CFN suffix. So if it starts with the CFN, it's the CloudFormation level 1 struct. And there are more in this. But level 2, which is higher level of the abstraction, for example, this environment could be level 2 abstraction. What would be the difference? When you work with the resources, you can pass the level 2 construct into level 1 construct, and AWS will figure out how to get ARN. What is the benefit? API changes. Something else changes. It still works because they maintain the interfaces, they maintain their library, and they have that's their responsibility. Okay. So use cases. When to use it, when to not use it. Obviously, it's AWS only. So if you work with the AWS and you would like to use it, you may give it a try. Two alternatives that I see are CDK for Terraform and Plummy. Why? Because those are also available as a programming language. CDK for Terraform is actually strange for me because from what I know, it's released and maintained by AWS, but it's listed on the HashiCorp Terraform site as their official tool. Once again, why code is good? Because code is knowledge, code is preference. For example, I like to use Session Manager. So whenever I create EC2, I have Session Manager built-in, installed, permission set, roles configured. I have single functions that I call, and it has all my preferred setup built in, ready for me to use. And teams are different. They have different preferences, they work differently, and one setup doesn't fit all. So I see this as a way to build the setup, to build the tools, to build something that your team will be happy to use. And once again, maybe the selling point for your company, it's hard to get engineers into the infrastructure, especially with the YAML. But with the programming language, some language that they don't know, that they would like to know, or maybe some language that you would like to learn, this is a great starting point. It's easy, it's straightforward, it does not require much of your attention or time. And yeah, more on strengths. I come from the Rails background, and Rails is all-in-one framework. But Rails is missing infrastructure. Latest release added Camel for deployments, but it's still not enough. It does not have servers. Like, you cannot have applications that from day one allows you to live in the public internet. Nobody will see it. Conventions. I also like to use them. Like, I pass the params, and for example, if I need an S3 bucket, I know how it will be named because I use functions to name those buckets, and all of them are named depending on the stack. So if it's production bucket, It will be need production, backend, application, blah, blah, blah. Whatever I need. Dynamic loading. Once again, with the programming language, you can build something that you find convenient. I find convenient separation of the provisioning and configuration. I have separate functions for configuring environment, and they are dynamically loaded. So I have one piece of code that provisions infrastructure, and second piece of code that is responsible for customization of that environments. Environment variables, size, for example, VPC, CDR, it all can live there. Like you have less stuff to care about. Compilation errors. This may be something that where you would start, because from my experience, 2 points where you may start the best are the security groups, because they are usually entangled, like one security group's permission over the other. And if you drop one, suddenly you either cannot do it or because you don't know where it all lives. But with this, if you drop the variable in the code will tell you, like, this variable has been used here and here. It will not compile. It will not work unless you make everything work. Tagging, which is huge for billing or for tracking. It's that easy. One command and all the resources within the stack have all the tags. And tests, they mostly use, and I mostly use snapshot testing, which is building the CloudFormation template and using diffs on the CloudFormation template. But you have the infrastructure that gets tested before deployment, not after you have deployed and you check whether it's right. You check it before, you check whether it is what you expect it to be. So draw benefits. You may find some others that suits you better, but there should be some. Homework, because everybody loves homework. So if you would like to play with it, with this exact, I will later provide other resources that you may start with. In the description of this event, there is a link for the repository, download the repository, there is the code, there are some customizations that I built for me to work with it, but still you can use it to get a feeling of how it works and see whether it's something that may be useful for you or not. And once again, don't forget to destroy resources, because it will stay there for a day. It will be not much because it's simple, but it will be there. And this actually is, the last step is impossible because CDK does not handle this type of dependencies. Sandbox stack, application stack depends on the sandbox. Like application is deployed on the VPC. If you try to delete the VPC first, it will not allow you. You will get a lot of errors, the deletion failure, and a lot of headache. Okay, let me check whether the deployment has finished. Almost. Okay, timing is all right. The resources that you may use if you are interested. AWS has the workshop, their own workshop, which guides you from step 1 till the resources being deployed. It's available in multiple languages. That's where I started, and it's a good starting point. They actually remind me of the other providers. They have provided a great tutorials. Their layer guide, more on the constructs and difference. There is the construct hub and there is the GitHub repository where they provide examples of the resources. Sometimes from what I can see, their recent push is towards level 3 resources. But still, there are examples in multiple languages, in multiple combinations, so something that you may want to see. And, okay, one more check. Not done yet. Okay, so I'm a bit not exactly within my time frame, but I hope it will end. So I'm grateful for your time. Thank you for having me. It was a great pleasure.